Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the stream. So great to see you all. We're going to have a great stream today. We're talking about China, Zhongguo. For those who don't know, and many of you might not know this, I studied in China for 2 years. I lived in China, in the People's Republic of China, from 2013 to 2015 as a China government scholar for Sino-US cultural communication, which means I had a scholarship from the Chinese government, and I was on full scholarship, and I got my master's degree in Marxist philosophy from Huazhang University of Science and Technology in Wuhan, in Hubei province. So China is very close to my heart. I studied the language. Of course, I'm not good at it at all, but I try my best. And I have a real love and a passion for traveling around the country and bringing the stories to you all. And so I just got back from a nearly 10-day long trip. We went to Shanghai, and then we flew from Shanghai after a few days to Guizhou province, which is an amazing, amazing province. And of course, on this trip, I was joined by Jackson Hinkle, my brother, and my other little brother, Dennis Rogietuk, who's a fantastic journalist as well, based out of Latin America, out of Mexico. So really, really fantastic. We're going to go over the trip tonight. We're going to provide you with some details of the trip and kind of share with you some of our thoughts and our experiences. And Jackson will be joining here soon. Look forward to having him on as well. And one thing that I think I want to highlight is that for many people, China seems to be scary, remote, just maybe outside of the bounds of what we are comfortable with. But I have to say, as somebody who's lived there, traveled throughout the country, from Xinjiang to the coast, from Heilongjiang all the way south to Yunnan, I would say that China is one of the most hospitable countries. It's one of the friendliest countries. It's a country that's so diverse with 56 or so minorities and ethnicities. And you really will feel at home with the Chinese people. No doubt about it. Whether it's Han Chinese, whether it's Uyghurs, or Tibetans, or Mongolians, Manchu, you name it. There's just so many people, so much love, so much care, and so much curiosity for Waigoren, Lawai, for the foreigners especially. They want to learn, they want to understand, they want to be friends. And, on this trip, of course, the same as always happens, people coming up, taking pictures, interested in our stories, and really enjoyable for me. Always a pleasure to meet people where they're at, to get to know them and their stories. And that's one thing that was so amazing about this trip, was we got to really meet people where they were at, especially in Guizhou province. Now, Guizhou province is very, very unique. And I want to share this with you as Jackson's coming on here just in a bit. But I want to share with you this article. This article is from 2019, by the way. Guizhou poverty reduction, 7 million people lifted out of poverty in 5 years. One of China's poorest areas might also be one of its most improved. In recent years, Guizhou province has suddenly lifted millions out of poverty, now with the nation just over a year away from its goal of eliminating extreme poverty. So that's absolutely phenomenal. And most people don't know that Guizhou is an inspiration to so many people around the world, because the poverty alleviation programs that it embarked on, and we'll talk about that with Jackson. We were able to see some of those poverty alleviation programs up close and personal. The poverty alleviation programs lifted tens of millions of people out of extreme poverty and completely transformed Guizhou from one of the poorest provinces to an absolutely miraculous story of Chinese development. And that's something that people have to understand. I mean, it's a mountainous terrain, difficult terrain, but the information that we gathered on the ground, unbelievable stories, and the resilience, the tenacity of the Chinese people to overcome all obstacles, from the highest peaks to the deepest valleys, the raging rivers. They were able to overcome all these obstacles to build infrastructure. We'll talk about that. And to do all of that in order to alleviate poverty and to really develop the province. And Guizhou is a miracle. Guizhou should be emulated by everyone, because it shows that when a government is committed to its people and not to the Epstein class, not to endless wars, not to regime change, not to any of that, it can be successful. And here we are. So I want to bring onto the stage my brother, Jackson Hinkle. Welcome.
How's it going, bro?
Good, good. How are you, bro?
Bro, so there's something you have to add on your channel next time, which allows me to raid your stream with all my viewers, and you don't have it enabled. And I have no idea how to do it, or else I would have told you just now, but you have to look it up.
I will figure it out. I will figure it out. Hopefully they all come over.
They'll watch it after the fact, if not.
For sure. For sure. So I'm just speaking now. I was just opening up about Guizhou, sort of the miracle, the poverty alleviation that we saw. Tell us in your perspective and, sort of what you experienced there. And I also have your video as well to pull up. Tell us what you thought about it. You went on the bus. I couldn't go on the bus. It was a little bit tight. And I also had, I was walking around with the crutches and my boot. But tell us about like what that was like, what that kind of experience was for you. I think that was a first for you to really be on a bus of, people who had been lifted out of poverty and basically just going at 5 a.m. into the center of a major city in China.
Yeah, I think that was maybe not too many people have ever done that.
That's right.
But, it's what I'll say is I published the video of that bus ride. And obviously, yeah, I would have loved to have you on that, but you're still recovering. You were on the crutches. And that was a dangerous bus ride for me, a healthy young man, to be on a little bit, because it was so crowded and we had a giant film crew. Usually the bus is not that crowded. We talked to the operators of the bus, but we kind of overcrowded it a little bit. And if you didn't hold on, it was dangerous. Otherwise, it was not dangerous, of course. But I was trying to film and I almost fell over one time. So that was not great. But the bus is really incredible because, as you know, China, in an effort to revitalize this rural region, Guizhou is a region that's like literally almost 100% made up of mountains, and it's very difficult terrain. Previously, not too long ago, it was very disconnected, no infrastructure, no roads, no tunnels through the mountains, and a lot of disconnected rural farmers. And so we went on one of these bus lines that connects the rural farmers to Guiyang, the capital city, which used to be the poorest capital city in all of China. And what's so incredible about that story is we just went on one bus, but this is the slow season right now in China. And they have 41 different bus lines that they operate across the region or across the city for this specific purpose. And then also they have trains that do this. Some people were commenting in my YouTube video. They have the green line train. They have boats that do this for people who are like isolated by water. So they literally cover any possible circumstances of people being disconnected from the city to try and make sure that these farmers have, means to sell their goods. It's, again, the question has to be asked, why can't we do this in America?
Absolutely. Actually, I'm going to pull up here so that people kind of get an idea of what Guizhou looks like. I'm pulling up here just a sort of topography so that people can get a general kind of feel. And I think that this will give sort of the idea. Let's see if we can get a good image here for this. Okay, perfect. So this gives people just a general idea of what they are looking at. So here, let's pull this up here. All right, take a look at this. I mean, this is sort of just to give you an idea. That is very mountainous. And as you can see in those kind of like lighter areas in between, those like higher elevations, a lot of deep valleys. So not necessarily like kind of shallow valleys. We're talking about, and we saw this, Jackson, by the way, with the bridge. We'll talk about that. Straight down. Like it goes from like, the peaks of the different ridges almost nearly straight down. So we're talking about a very, very treacherous terrain. And this is just the beginning. This is sort of the end of the Himalayas, sort of that, you have the Tibetan plateau a little bit further. And really that Himalayan range, that part of that you can see on the western side of Guizhou, that's connected to what eventually becomes the Himalayan range. So we're talking about 4,000 meter plus peaks. So, I mean, that is something really remarkable when you think about it. What can be done with this?
And, well, I want to ask you, you said you talked about how you had, of course, been to Guiyang, the capital city, which is where the bus had its in destination, where the farmers market was. What were the biggest changes that you saw in the capital city since the last time you visited, and how long ago was that?
So the only time I went to Guiyang was to visit a friend in 2015. And in 2015, it had recently been connected by high-speed rail. And so we went in there, but the city was like decades behind. You could tell. It was in the process. You could see some building, but it was still like full street markets, and it was chaotic, and there was traffic, and it was just, you could tell that it was overcrowding in certain areas. There was certainly still issues with different infrastructure projects and the inability to really move around. You could tell that people were coming in and trucking their products from all over the countryside, but they were doing so without permits, without licenses, without really protection from the government. It basically reminded me of a bazaar in the Middle East or North Africa, where it was utter chaos in the city. And that's what it was like in China in those days. Don't forget, I arrived in China a year after Xi Jinping came to power. So before that, we had the leadership of Hu Jintao. So it was opening up. It was continuing with the reforms, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao. But Hu Jintao was also kind of adopting some American model, and really there were people around him who wanted neoliberalism. And then when Xi Jinping came, he went back to kind of a more orthodox socialist with Chinese characteristics model. And so that kind of jolted the system a little bit. And so there were these development projects. I was stunned when we went just this, a week and a half ago. We entered into Guiyang, and I literally asked the driver, none of this seems familiar to me. He said, all of it has been built in the past decade. Literally, since I was there, everything, 4 major highways, dozens of tunnels, huge infrastructure. It's connected now by high-speed rail to multiple other provinces. It was unbelievable. The housing, he said it must have been hundreds of thousands of units addition since I was there. That's an enormous sum. There were an entire neighborhood of high-rises that I'd never saw before. And he said they were all new. I mean, that's the success story of China. When people are like, oh, China, communist dictatorship. No. China is a multi-party system with the Communist Party of China receiving the majority of the votes. There are still other parties, by the way, that are in the National Congress, and the the people can elect other parties. And with that, they basically, because of their economic and political structure, they're able to basically say, okay, we're going to build this, we're going to build it. You put up, I want to bring up this tweet because I thought it was so pertinent, I think, especially now. I want to bring this up because I think people don't really understand what we're talking about. You wrote here, right, at the bridge, right? Breaking, I just visited the world's tallest bridge in Guizhou, China. The Huajiang Gorge Bridge slashes a 3-hour drive into a 3-minute drive. That's what they told us there. It was unbelievable. We felt it. We experienced it. We drove on it. Built in 3.5 years for under $300 million. Compare that to Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge, $5+ billion, and not done until 2030. Not only that, the plans are not even finished yet for what the bridge will eventually look like. It hasn't been fully approved yet. So China builds for its people. The U.S. builds for profit and endless war. What did you think about that? Like when you saw you first went to China, how long ago? 2 years ago?
Yeah, but I'd only been in Shanghai and Suzhou, which is, a 30-minute high-speed rail train out of Shanghai.
What did you think about this? Now you're far flung. You're way off from Shanghai. We had to take a plane out there, right? We're near the ends of the earth, really, as they say, especially near Tibet and the Himalayas. What did you think about what you saw there?
Well, the bridge itself was crazy because you and I were in different cars, but in our car, we were rushing there. You can't really rush on these Chinese highways though, because they've got like speed cameras everywhere. Anytime you go through the tunnels in the mountains, they have a speed camera. They don't want anyone to crash. But we were trying to rush there to get to the world's tallest bridge for the light show, because they do this fantastic light show. And then at midday they also do, so that's at nighttime, and then at midday they do the water show, the waterfall with the giant rainbow. But we were trying to rush there, and we were so concerned about whether or not we were going to get to the light show on time to see the light show from the hotel we were staying in, which overlooks the bridge. And I looked up and I'm like, I was telling Nelly, my girlfriend, I was telling Nelly, I'm like, this bridge is massive. I said, this bridge is, we were so close. I was like, this bridge is massive. They built 9 of the top 10 bridges, top 10 tallest bridges in the world in China. 5 of the top 10 tallest in the world are in Guizhou province. I said, this must be one of the other top 5, tallest in the world. And we were on the bridge for like 15 seconds. And then all of a sudden, our guide sitting next to us was like, wait, we're on the bridge. And then like 5 seconds later, we were off the bridge. So they say it's a 3-minute drive. I think that's when there's like traffic on it. When there's no traffic, I mean, it's pretty short. And it's still the longest, the main span is the longest steel truss suspension bridge in a mountainous region in the world. But actually, I mean, to think that would have been a minute, 2 minutes would have been a 3-hour car drive is insane. But overall, I mean, everything we saw was incredible. And it's not incredible necessarily because of, what they built or how fast they built it. It's the fact that they're building it for like what was the poorest region in China, and not just the poorest region, but they're building, as you pointed out, and when we were at the farmers market, they're building highways for rural villages in the mountains for like 40 farmers,
Yeah.
a highway for 40 farmers. That's insane. Never would have happened in America. They're
Oh.
building, etching a water canal into the mountain and cliffside, 3 cliffsides, 3 mountain ranges it passes over, 9 kilometers in total. And it took 36 years to build it by hand. And they did that for villages of about, a few thousand people. So it's not about the, insanity of the projects themselves, I think is also incredible. That always gets talked about, but you don't actually hear who it's for. And that's the most shocking thing of all, because in America, if something is, if there's a project being proposed for someone other than Wall Street to siphon off, immense amounts of money for, it's not going to get completed. And we know that for a fact. Even the high-speed rail in California, that started in the early 2000s. They spent over $100 billion on it. And of course, they made a lot of money, but nothing got done.
Yeah, exactly. You look at this bridge. I mean, I just wanted to put this picture up there so people could really take a look. This is unbelievable. When you look at this, it's a marvel. It's an engineering marvel. And the fact that they completed it in 3.5 years from start to finish, it boggles the mind. It proves to me, and I know to you, we were there, we were talking about it. It proves that a command economy with a strong party, with socialist characteristics, and really a drive to serve the people can accomplish such massive projects in such short amounts of time, because that's where all of the energy of the state goes to.
Yes. And, I think that one of the funniest things of the trip was so I'd only been to Shanghai and Suzhou, which is like a touristy little city they call it the Venice of the East. It has all these water canals and it's very nice, but actually that's the old city. The Suzhou greater area is also like a major tech industrial hub as well now. But, what's so funny is like, I guess, even though I I can't say I fully understand, but like I have a rudimentary understanding, a better understanding than maybe most propagandized Americans of what the Chinese political system is today. You have a much better understanding than I do. You studied it, you've lived there, you did your master's there. I believe you lectured there at universities.
Yep.
But what's funny is, like, despite my knowledge of the system and the history of the country, uh, going to Shanghai only, you kind of like, you don't really understand how real it all is. And you see relentlessly, my entire Twitter feed is filled with people saying, China's not actually communist. China's not actually communist. But you go literally anywhere in the country, and like, it's not even up for debate. It just is. It's real. It is. People not only are like openly talking about it and discussing this simple fact, and how this has literally been the foundation for not just freeing them from the feudal society that they lived under, but also the great success, the power, more powerful than the US objectively now, in all spheres. But also that, this is something they're very proud of, and they wear it on their sleeves, and they want the world to know. But the world is just so propagandized, it's insane. I mean, I think you ask most Americans, they say, well, China's not really communist. It used to be, but it's not anymore. I encourage anyone who says that to go to China and just see it for yourself, talk with the people, ask them what they think. And that's why we went there. That's why we made these videos. And, I know you're going to be posting some of your comments from the trip, and the people like Huang Dafa here that you interacted with and we interacted with, and people will hear it straight from, what we saw there.
Absolutely. I put this picture up here because this is a man whose story I think is absolutely remarkable. And he has been recognized as a hero in China with the highest medal that you can possibly get, the July 1st medal from the Communist Party of China, awarded to him by none other than President Xi Jinping. And this award came directly from the Central Committee of the Communist Party. And his story is unbelievable. 36 years, carving 9.2 kilometers worth of canal in mountainside to bring water to 5,000 villagers, and basically connect 3 villages to this water source. I mean, this is an unbelievable story of heroism and labor, and and everything like that. And I was really overcome with emotions meeting him. What were your thoughts about meeting him and kind of hearing this story? Because this is the first time you were out of Shanghai and Suzhou, as you said, and now you're in like a really remote, I mean, this was a remote village, tucked away. Nobody really is going to come there ever. And he somehow has put it on the map because of his labor. What did you think of his story? What did you think of meeting him?
Honestly, I didn't really like, when we first got there, there was this very big bridge. Just like, anywhere else it'd be, the greatest modern engineering feat of the entire country. It would be a huge tourist destination, is massive bridge, and people will see it when we post some photos and videos further of what we saw there. But like, I just thought we were stopping for like this crazy view of this massive bridge, one of the other tallest bridges in the world in China. And I woke up, and I was very tired from the previous day, and I didn't fully understand what we were about to witness. And when I first like heard that they did this, I didn't even really, it's kind of hard to believe, like 36 years coming from a country where, and not just a country, a generation now, where I think people just have such a short attention span in a country where everything is about immediate profit, and the idea of doing anything for any other purpose than securing maximum profit, or engaging in some sort of a project that's just going to serve villagers, or a project that's going to cost, or take 40 years to build. All of that seems kind of like a fantasy tale. But fantasy is reality in China, and he is a living hero. I mean, we literally visited the museum dedicated to him and the workers that made this happen and made the promise back when he was 26, 5 years old, something like that, when he got elected as the chairman of the local party's committee in that village, in the region. And he came with the promise saying, I'm going to bring water. I'm going to bring electricity. I'm going to bring roads. He did all of that and more. He brought the world's tallest bridges as well. He inspired this action, of course. And he's a living legend. What can I say? I mean, I don't think I've ever met anyone that is alive and has a museum dedicated to the work that they spent their life, building. But here we have it. And I couldn't think of a person who deserves something, an honor like that, and the other honors that he's received more, because he is probably, in speaking with him, I think he's what we could gather, probably like one of the most disciplined individuals that I've ever met. His work is exemplary of that characteristic, that he is very, very disciplined. He's proud of that. And he wants other people to understand that when you are disciplined and when you're committed to the unthinkable, you can achieve any goals. And goals is insane and ludicrous as sounding, that he, a party chairman in these random villages, was going to deliver these massive promises to the people there. But he did it.
He did it. There he is. There he is with Xi Jinping getting his medal in 2021. Unbelievable, really. Such a amazing story. And also, we got to see that. We went up there. We went to the mountainside. We got to see the canal. That was, and this is what people don't understand. They're like, oh, they had machinery. No, they used the most primitive tools. We saw it: hammers, chisels, pickaxes, shovels. That's it. There was no heavy machinery. No heavy machinery could be brought in. They were rappelling from the cliffside and digging this by hand. That is remarkable.
And it also, the project temporarily ended in like 1990 or 1991, something
Correct.
like that.
Correct.
I was recording a video when they discussed that point, but as I understand, they failed to deliver the water to the villages because of the cliffs. Was it the cliff sides that was
Correct.
too difficult?
Correct.
And he was committed still. He said, no, we can do it. We can do it. They needed some more supplies. They needed like ropes to hang from the cliffside with, and some other supplies to be able to dig into that cliffside. And it's like a sheer, a straight down drop on the cliffside.
Oh yeah.
But he said, no, we can do it. We can do it. Keep in mind, these are not like expert engineers. These are just random villagers that had a dream and had discipline and a vision and wanted prosperity. And so what he did was, after I think 2 or 3 years of the temporary pause, he created a petition for the county government. He had to walk something ridiculous, like 100 kilometers, right? 100 kilometers. He had to walk all the way to the county regional offices, the water commission, and request just a little bit more in terms of supplies. They needed some ropes, as I said, to be able to, scale these cliff sides. And with that extra oomph of support, they did complete it. So it literally failed, and then they kept going. They kept going. What American official, Randy Fine couldn't walk 10 feet if there was a gun against his head. He'd collapse and pass out because of his sheer mass. And he's not even walking 10 feet for anything. He's walking 10 feet to give Netanyahu a blowjob. What American official would walk 100 kilometers by foot to deliver a petition to the government to get more supplies to help his people to etch a canal by hand, pickaxe, into a cliffside? It's insane, but they did it.
They did it. They did it. Now, speaking of that kind of spirit, we got to talk about the next thing, which I think is, a lot of people don't know about it, but we're going to throw this up here. This is the Long March, for those who don't know. Over 10,000 kilometers. Over 10,000 kilometers, 2 years, basically, 1934, 1935. And you had the Red Army doing a tactical retreat, right? Engaging in over 600 armed conflicts along the way, scaling 4,000-meter Himalayan snow-covered peaks, valleys, grassland, raging rivers. And they started out with a little over 80,000 or so and ended with what? 7 to 10,000, around 8,000 or so at the end when they got to Yan'an. So talk about your perspective. This was the first time you put out the video today, I believe it was, about the Long March. We had the clips from the Junyi Museum and the conference that we went to, the amazing museum that we saw in Guiyang, which was unbelievable. What did you think about? What do you think about the spirit of the Long March? What does the Long March mean, do you think, for the Chinese people today?
Well, we heard it straight from the source, from the party cadre or comrade that we spoke to in Zunyi, which is where the Zunyi conference, of course, took place, where Mao established his more formal political command and military command in the middle of the Long March before he became chairman. But he said, they had it inscribed on the wall of the community center that they worked at and lived in, and to be steadfast in the face of all obstacles, to be unified in defense of the sovereignty of the Chinese civilization. And that pretty much sums up, what the Long March was about. I mean, to think that you had the Red Army and their various bases. You had 5 pretty much successful encirclement campaigns, which resulted in the Red Army getting obliterated at most of these bases, as I understand. And the last one was on the Jiangxi Fujian border, and it was a very precious, of course, base of operations that's Soviet for the Red Army and for the Communist Party of China, because it was their last main operating hub. And still they tried another attempt to try and fend off the Kuomintang, but they failed. They were pursuing this conventional warfare. They failed. And to think that they then went on the run, they marched back and forth over rivers, back over the rivers, over mountainside, back down the mountainside, back up the mountainside, through deserts, through snow, through rain, through jungle, through whatever you could possibly imagine, as they were getting chased by the KMT forces, who were far more, heavily armed. They had heavy artillery. They had far greater weapons at their disposal. They had, stronger troop personnel, larger numbers, and they managed to reach a, preferable position on the border region next to the Soviet Union, basically. And they did all that. They walked from the equivalent of like New York to Seattle all the way back to New York. It's really incredible because, again, you look at, I don't want to just put it simply. It's like American soldiers. They don't roll out of bed in the morning in today's day and age unless they're bombing kids in Iran or Yemen or Gaza or Lebanon or wherever. That's all they do. They say, we're not even going to do that job unless we're using our standoff munitions and firing from afar. There's all this talk about the strength of the U.S. military. While there's individual acts that are impressive, of course, but you see how things are going. You see how things are really going. I don't know. I don't think that you could put the troops of the U.S. military today in a position like that, or for that matter, troops of most any countries, any people in conditions like that, on the run, no provisions, no logistics, not knowing where you're going to take a base next, not knowing where you're going to set up next, not knowing if they're going to send planes overhead and drop bombs on you, and you're walking for this entire period of time and you don't know what's going to happen and all things look bleak. But somehow, they kept pushing. They marched through 11 provinces. And I will say that in visiting the immersive museum in the Guizhou region and visiting the Zunyi city where the conference was held, I had a very much more rich understanding of what this really means and how big of a struggle it is. And that it really only happens when you can go and hear it from the people who their parents lived through it, their grandparents lived through it. In some cases, we spoke to people that were living through it themselves and were directly impacted by it. And, I put it as a layman observer and historian, I guess I put it up with the likes of, the greatest military feats that we've all come to know. And that's why Mao is, of course, considered one of the greatest military minds of all time, but especially the greatest, guerrilla, a warrior of all time. And that's why so many people today, whether it's Iran, whether it's Gaza, whether it's Lebanon, they study Mao. They study his military thought and they learn from it, because if they were successful and they had the discipline and the soldiers, the Red Army was successful in what was an unthinkable situation after unthinkable situation along the long march to the eventual success and now modern China, clearly they did something right.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that was clear for me, and you've alluded to it, is that the difference between the US military and other Western militaries and China, especially the Red Army at this time before the People's Liberation Army, is that they were motivated by ideology. They were motivated by their own suffering. They had what's called the Sanshan, like the three mountains, right? So you had imperialism, bureaucrat capitalism, and feudalism. So they're trying to literally get out of this feudal mode for thousands of years. They're trying to overcome imperialism, Japanese imperialism, as well as the various concessions, whether it be the other Western countries, right? Especially the UK, other ones that had concessions, the Germans, the Belgians, the Portuguese, right? Macau. So they're trying to overcome that, and they're trying to overcome just their social, political, and economic situation within China, and fighting the Kuomintang, right? Fighting Jiang Jieshi, Chiang Kai-shek, right? So in that, they're motivated by their own reality, like their own suffering, their families. Many of them grew up in poverty. We heard that Huang Dafa was born in the 1920s and late 30s or late 20s, early 30s. So he himself, he's in his 90s, right? He himself experienced feudal China. I mean, when you think about that, that's unbelievable. Like the fact that he lived at a time where there were warlords, opium, such extreme poverty. People were eating sand and bark. That's how bad it was in rural areas. There's like some terms in Chinese for this, how people had to resort to some of the worst survival techniques, and many of them died because it's not really possible to survive off of this stuff. But he mentioned to me, especially, he said that those were difficult years, and it was only under the leadership of the Communist Party that we were able to overcome these things. Otherwise, we would have stayed feudal, slaves, serfs, basically, vassals to these warlords and various monopoly interests that would have continued to rape and pillage the countryside, would have stolen their grain, their food, whatever little meager things they could get, they would have been taken by those powerful forces. So the Red Army had something to fight for. They had a vision for a new China. That's what everybody was saying. That's what we learned. The spirit of the Long March is the building of a new China, of a democratic China. And that was big, of course, this, this idea of the people's government, what in Greek was called laokratia, right? The government of the people. That's what they wanted, right? That's what they pushed for, So I think that people have to understand the Long March spirit is embodied today. And I think that Xi Jinping himself embodies the Long March spirit. We saw that Xi Jinping's father was also involved in these early years, right? We saw his picture in the museum. So he was also a part of these early pivotal years of the Communist Party in the 30s, 40s, 50s. So that's important. Like this is not so far away. This is not ancient history for Chinese. Chinese people have a long historical memory. This is yesterday for them. This is people really. I mean, when we were walking down the streets in Junyi, like the young kids wearing the red scarves, we met with the older gentleman who was in the army, and the woman who was one of the leaders of the party. And you put out that video today with their kind of explanations. Both of them spoke about the spirit of what the long and why they want to teach that spirit to the next generation. They don't have to suffer like the previous generation, but they have to achieve new heights, right? And he even mentioned our successes now go beyond what even the borders of China. We saw at the Long March Museum, we saw space rockets, right? We saw lunar vehicles. All of these things, like the conception is that the Long March now extends far beyond the borders of China. It's now the Long March of humanity in its progress. And I think that's what people need to really understand and take in, that the Chinese people are guided and motivated by this. And that's why you don't see them at endless wars. That's why their focus is diplomacy, economic development, cooperation, mutual prosperity. That's where they're dedicated. They're dedicated to peace. They're dedicated to harmony. That's the entire motivating, perspective of the Chinese state now, and the Chinese government, and really the Chinese people at large. So I hope that people can grasp the Long March in this capacity. I hope that they are able to take that in. The show for you, how did you think of the show? I don't know in the video, I didn't see if you had any clips from the show, or if you're gonna do that in a separate video. But what did you think of the show, that experience, kind of getting that full immersion to see the Long March?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do a video about that. Kind of hard to produce a video about that. I'll see what I can do. But that was, I mean, it just is unfortunate, because regardless of how well you can edit, I can't edit that well, but regardless of how well you can edit, that is one of those things that it will only capture like 1% of what we felt when we were there walking through that immersive exhibit regarding the Long March. First of all, I mean, like, probably half of the exhibit was in Chinese, right? There was no translations for a lot of it, but didn't matter at all. Didn't matter one bit. The important parts were in English, I think. Especially when we sat down and watched the montage of reenactment videos and whatnot. But first of all, I mean, that the technology employed in that immersive exhibit was like nothing I'd ever seen before. The moving screen, like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like we sat down in a chair, and then it like the whole like seating arrangement, everything was moving, and the seats were moving, and the screens were popping up out of the ground, and there was like this like 4D feeling of the screens, and it was like I don't even know how to describe it. It was insane. But and then of course the actors were very impressive, and it was very emotional. It was very emotional. You could go to something like that. You could go to that and have very little to no understanding of what the Long March is, and come out understanding exactly why China is where it is today, and why the people of China say, yeah, we're chill with where we're at now, but we're not done. We need to do 2 times, 3 times more than what we've accomplished now. And like, not that they're chill, we're complacent, but we're happy with what we're at. We should be thankful for what we're at and the work that's been done. But they say we will not be satisfied until we double, triple, quadruple our efforts of achieving prosperity for the people. You understand that not a single death, even those who are, the names are not known, that was lost, martyred on the Long March. They don't let one of those deaths go in vain. They won't let one of those deaths be forgotten, as they continue to forge a new path and continue to build China into a greater behemoth of power and prosperity in their honor and memory and legacy moving forward. And Well, those things are all obvious, but I mean, what you really can't fathom unless you go to this, Red March immersive museum. I think they called it Red Ribbon Immersive
Yep.
Museum, something like
Yep.
that. What you
Yep.
can't fathom is just how impressive I usually don't even really like museums. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. There's like, I'd rather like read a book or watch a video essay or something. I don't really like the walking around and the staring at the stuff. It's like I'd rather just read a book. But this was crazy. This was literally the craziest exhibit I've ever seen in my life. And by far, and I've been to museums and exhibits in many countries and seen everything I think they could throw, every single sort of reenactment, and you walk through the burning village and the war and stuff. It's like, this was a million times crazier than any of that. China is, well, they're very dedicated to preserving their history and patriotic about their history. And they want to make sure that nothing is forgotten, and that the youth of China today understand exactly what was fought for and how hard they had to fight for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. If you could like, and to wrap it up, if you could think about like the big takeaway from all of your experiences so far in China, what would you take away? What's kind of something that you feel is important that you've learned and you've kind of embodied and maybe incorporated in your life?
I just think that the main takeaways are kind of everything that I listed. It's still stuff that I'm even thinking about several days out, and I'll think about many days into the future. I think the main takeaways are, of course, the discipline of not just the heroes that we hear the stories of, we see the photos of in these museums, right? But like, just normal people in China, normal citizens that don't have their photos anywhere, don't have an intention to make it a life goal that they're honored for their work or something like that, but discipline for the sole purpose of just trying to improve the lives of the people around them and improve their country. And from a sincere, refusal to ever return to anything that even remotely resembles feudal society or the various, occupations that were had in China, and the economic system that predated, the People's Republic of China. So discipline, I think, is one of them. Of course, sincere patriotism. You have to reflect on that, and like, what are we patriotic for? And America, the patriotism, it's all commercialized. It's like Disneyland. Haas always says DC is like Disneyland of the deep state, and it's true. And when we learn about these figures in our history, which we do have a glorious history, we also have a dark history, but we do have glorious parts of our history in the U.S. We're given a very, sterile commercial sort of analysis of what these men and women were fighting for in the foundation and development of our country. And especially, of course, the efforts that were launched, which were not always successful. Things that would have charted America into a very, I think, beautiful future, and actions and, efforts which, you read the works of revolutionaries across the world, anti-imperialist and communist revolutionaries across the world. And it's like, these actions, in some cases, though not fruitful, they did inspire other revolutionaries. And so I think the discipline, the patriotism, and I think also just probably the biggest thing is like, the last thing I'll say is just having a fundamental understanding of the problems of China, and China, their problems are that they are not, already doubling the levels of prosperity that they're currently at. Like that's what they're thinking of. What is on their minds? What is their vision for the future? That in America, it's not our fault kind of is, but not really. It's like, what are we thinking of? We're thinking, how can we convince Americans that bombing an elementary school of 170 girls is actually not a good thing, and the people of Iran don't like that? Like, that's how propagandized America is. That's how complacent America is with the official narratives, and that's it's a lot of problems that result in thinking like that. And well, those are our problems. How do we unearth this Epstein regime from these seats of power? So they're just fundamentally different problems. And I think it's always shocking when you go to another country, and every country has their own problems. But like in China, they've got really, really interesting problems. Their problems are much different than our problems. And for everyone who talks so much negativity towards communism, I question why. These people who say they're truth tellers on X and Facebook and, in their daily lives, saying that communism is the root of all evil. It's like, well, who told you that? The same government that, was palling around with Epstein, the same government that is committing all these horrific atrocities in the name of Wall Street and defense companies. The same country that has literally given you absolutely squat for decades, and our standard of living is getting worse and worse and worse. Life expectancy going down in America, you name it. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just like, wow, communism, of course, achieved success. And as a result of that success, the problems look much different than the problems in America. And China is proof that when you actually embody an ideology that unites and defends the sovereignty and achieves prosperity and adapts to the own unique conditions of your country, sky's the limit. But what about you?
I agree with you. And I think that China is actually not only concerned about its own problems, it really wants to lift the world. That's the whole point of the Belt and Road. That's the whole point of like these development projects. China is building infrastructure for free for a lot of countries all over. The people don't understand this. African countries are getting ports, railroads, intermodal facilities, the highways, you name it. They're building infrastructure for free. They're canceling debt for some countries. You and I have reported on this. Why? Because they say that if we build up the capacities, instead of stealing the wealth, instead of being a neo-colonial power and stealing the wealth, we're going to invest. Because if we invest, the people live better. The people live in their countries. They develop their countries. They grow their countries. And we can be more fruitful and more peaceful together. That's the key. So people who are saying, oh, illegal immigration. Well, why does illegal immigration happen? Well, when you plunder the entire global south, when the global majority has nothing left in their countries because everything's been plundered and taken out, where are they supposed to go to make a living? Where are they supposed to go to raise their kids? They're going to come to Europe. They're going to come to the US. They're going to come to Canada. They're going to go to Australia, New Zealand, you name it. So that's the key. The key is to develop countries, to strengthen all of the nations, both big and small, so that everyone can live a good quality of life and don't have to leave as economic refugees. Don't have to leave because of wars caused by natural resources, by regime change, by the fact that this government is not acceptable to, Washington or Tel Aviv or you name it, right? That's the key. So China operates differently. And China sees this investment as a long-term investment, not only for its own stability and peace and prosperity, but for the world's stability, peace, and prosperity. Because China knows that without the world being in that position, it will be on the defensive. And that means more money for the military, less money for investing in the people. And China has a huge population. So China needs to promote peace. And you're seeing it right now. Iran is using the petro yuan. Iran is asking for 2 million or so yuan to exit the Strait of Hormuz, right? So that's amazing. That's amazing when you think about it. We are seeing the decline of the dollar. We're seeing the rise of China, not only as a political power and a military power, but as an economic power. It's the second largest economy in the world. And this de-dollarization and the use of Chinese yuan is only going to strengthen the global majority. because the Chinese are not interested in regime changing your country. Chinese work with everybody. They're interested in strengthening all of the countries in the world, strengthening their sovereignty, their independence, and ultimately building these kinds of bridges, which is why I studied in China for free. Why? Because they said, come and see. We're going to invest in you so you can come and have an experience and you can see and you can take those experiences back home. You can become an ambassador of sorts for peace, for harmony, for understanding China. That's what we need to do. And that's why I hope that everybody here will check out China, not just travel. We'll check out all these great programs. I'll talk about that a little bit later on tonight, but we need to have opportunities where people can go and experience China, learn from China, understand it a little bit better, and not simply see it as some sort of like Oriental fantasy or kind of like a bizarre country and, oh, they eat insects. Sure, that they eat insects, but there's also a lot more than that, right? These kind of like caricatures don't grasp the totality of the country. And I think that's what people should be interested in, to learn the Chinese people, the history. We're talking about 10,000 plus years of recorded history. And the earliest recording history on bones, on the shells of turtles, the first, I mean, the Chinese language, right? The actual characters, the oldest form of writing that's still in existence for the largest part of the world. You know, if you're thinking about a language, you have 1 billion plus people using characters that were developed thousands of years ago. It's one of the only language systems that still exists in this capacity. So that's in and of itself amazing. When you look at these Chinese characters, you see history, right? We see history with the alphabet. Of course, we see Greece and Rome, or we see, for example, Byzantine, and then the Cyrillic language that was brought from the Greek alphabet. We see Arabic, right? We see these kinds of languages, or Sanskrit. But the Chinese character system, unbelievable, right? When you see it. That's, for me, I hope that people can really grasp the enormity of the history and the depth of knowledge and philosophy. And I think ultimately the deep meaning that China can give to the world. China, of course, translates to Middle Earth, right? Or the middle of the world, right? Zhongguo. But when you understand that China's place, like if you look at a Pacific-centered map, China is in the center, in a different vantage point. So people have to understand that China was the strongest country for most of human history, especially in the East. And we have to deal with it. We have to engage with it. We have to be partners. That's the best thing. If we can be partners, we can build a strong US, a strong China, a strong world. That's the key. But if we have this military confrontation, I fear that it benefits no one except for the Epstein class. That's the only people it benefits from. When you look at who is, crazy about, fake news about Xinjiang or Tibet, or, the Chinese Communist Party is, infiltrating everywhere, and Confucius Institute, it's all of these fanatical neocons and Epstein elite. So I hope that people in the chat will definitely check out the links in the description. China, not just travel. I hope that we will continue to do trips. I know that Jackson and I are going to plan the next couple of months to go back to China. And we're going to go back, hopefully every couple months, and bring you content from China. Go to different areas. We want to go to Xinjiang. We want to show you the truth. We want to go to Xizang. We want to go to Qinghai, Gansu, Heilongjiang, Inner Mongolia, Yunnan. We want to go all over because we want to show you the real, authentic China. We want to show you that there are Muslims in China who have lived there for millennia without issues. That there's a Christian heritage that goes back to Byzantine times and even earlier, right? That the Chinese saw the Roman Empire as Daqing, as equal to them in terms of their strength and wisdom. That China's archaeology has shown plates with ancient Greek gods and Alexander the Great, that there's so much rich heritage that connects us. That's what we want to show. And I hope that we can continue to do that, Jackson, together.
Well, I definitely share your sympathies about my keen interest in traveling more. I want to go to Xinjiang. That's, I think, next on the agenda for me. That's my goal. Kashgar, and seeing that, because the level of lies, even very sparsely now, but occasionally I'll see a comment here and there, usually with an aggressive amount of dislikes by the community, pushing these lies about the Uyghur Muslims in China. And well, even Sneeko, I talked to Sneeko on his stream, and he said some retarded shit, repeating what's that Londonistani, what's that guy's name? The fat guy? I forget his name.
Oh, I'm trying to remember his name. Yeah. It's not coming to
Mohammed
my.
Hijabi.
Yeah, from the UK, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the same shills that are attacking Iran right now, which Sneeko is not, right? Sneeko took a very fine line on Iran, but a lot of the people that were in his orbit had been feeding him this information: Iran bad, China bad. So I think it would be, it'd behoove us to go and visit Xinjiang and document the experiences, the culture of the Uyghur people, and well, all the other places you mentioned too. We'll make it all happen in due time.
We'll make it happen. Thanks again, Jackson, for not only all the great work that you're doing and for being a great brother on the trip, and for all of the good work that we've been doing over the course of these years. But look forward to doing a lot more with you. A lot of good things are coming up. So stay tuned for that. If you're not following Jackson Hinkle, please go subscribe, like, comment, share all the content on his YouTube page, on Legitimate Targets, on X, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. Go like, subscribe, share, and comment. And let's continue to build. We got to be together because we're not a big community. We're in the minority. We're in the majority in the world, but we're in the minority in the West. So we got to keep pushing the truth because we're up against very powerful forces. Remember, the Epstein elite, they control the media. We know this, Rupert Murdoch and, the Maxwells, and everybody had their hands in the media. Help us, and help independent media, help independent journalists to continue to bring this knowledge to the world, right? And to all of you. Thanks again, Jackson, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, and lots more coming soon.
Absolutely, brother. Take care. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Of course. So one thing that I want to do now with you all who are still here, I want to share with you all the China Not Just Travel. I want to, if you're not following them, please go follow them. They have an X page now. Follow it and try to inquire about some trips. They have some amazing trips. So we're basically helping them out. It's from China Academy. If you're interested in going to China, they have various itineraries now. Iconic China here, 12 days, 11 nights. Explore China's famous symbols and the history that led to today. Highlights include the pandas, hot pot, of course, Chongqing, cyberpunk city, red history, modern socialist development, tech infrastructure. This trip was developed in collaboration with Sun River, a leading Chinese travel company that is committed to developing one-stop leisure vacation services. So you've got a budget there, about $3,500 to $4,500. So numbers change depending on the tour, but you can see day 1, Shanghai. Day 2, Shanghai, you get to go see the socialist development. Day 3, you get to still be in Shanghai. Day 4, you go to Chengdu. Day 5 in Sichuan. Beautiful. I mean, look at this. It's unbelievable. And we're talking about, thousands of years of history here. Day 6, pandas. Of course, you got to go see the pandas. The nature, of course. Chengdu, of course, is at the border. It's also Sichuan province is also at the sort of a border of what's called Greater Tibet or Xinjiang. So definitely, you'll have that kind of experience as well with the monasteries. You'll see Chongqing as well on day 9 and 10. And then 11, you go back to Shanghai, and 12, you leave. So if you can, please check these out. We also have different trips planned here. We have Red China as well. Look at this, for those who are interested. We've got Red China, this itinerary. So you go to the Red Memorials, the historical reenactments and museums, socialist infrastructure, rural revitalization. Absolutely amazing. Again, Shanghai for 3 days. Then you go to Chongqing. And then you go to Junyi, where we just were. This is where Jackson and I were. This is the Junyi conference. You get to do a reenactment of the Long March. You'll go around the areas in Guangzhou. In Guizhou, not in Guangzhou, in Guizhou. And then you'll see some of the rural revitalization, the Miao village there. and you'll meet the various ethnic minorities. You go to modern Guizhou, to Guiyang City, as we talked about, and then back to Shanghai. So if you're not familiar, check this out. They also have a China summer school for those who are still students, and it's in collaboration also with Fudan University. That's where you'll get your credits from. So you can do various courses. You'll also have an opportunity to travel as well. So definitely check out China, Not Just Travel. And the link is in the YouTube, in the description. Check it out. Enjoy it. I hope that you all enjoyed this stream. It's a great pleasure to bring you the China content that we're creating. And I look forward to bringing more about China. I had the great opportunity, as you know, to live there, to study there, and to really understand China from within. So I hope that we can continue to bring you the truth about China, continue to bring you the story of China's achievements, and ultimately to make China more accessible to you all. But thank you all again for joining. It was a pleasure. It was a great stream. Happy to have Jackson on as always. Thank you to the nearly 5,000 people watching live. Really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. We're going to have a very special guest on the program here, Christopher Halali Official on YouTube, presented by DD Geopolitics. We're going to have tomorrow night Dimitri Lascaris, famous lawyer and journalist from Canada. Just got back from 2 weeks in Iran. We'll have him on the program to talk about his experiences in Iran, what he saw, what he experienced. And then again, Wednesday, we'll be here with Sarah again for DD Geopolitics. Thursday, we'll hope to have Tim Anderson on, who also went to Iran as well. So stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of great streams this week. Always a pleasure to be with you all. And thanks again for watching. Stay tuned. If you haven't, like, comment, subscribe, share, get all of this information out there. Very, very important for us to continue to get this information out to the public and continue to build a better world, a more peaceful world, a more prosperous world for everyone. Take care, everyone. Stay sharp, stay healthy, stay well. We'll see you soon.